Hi, my name is Lee Berger. I'm the president of the film division of Rhythm&Hues Studios.
I'm Gautham Krishnamurti. I'm the CTO of Rhythm&Hues.
Well, I think I can tell you why we started it. Even more than a decade ago, we saw that the price that the studios were starting to pay for visual effects and animation was shrinking, that there were a lot of economic pressures in the film business, and that the way for a company like Rhythm&Hues to stay competitive was to look overseas where there was less expensive labor. We had employees at the time who were of Indian descent, and they suggested at the time that maybe it would be a good time to look at India as a resource for having people with technical ability to be able to do some of the work that we were doing, thereby driving down our cost.
So, a decade ago, the decision was made to open up these satellite facilities in Asia, and the philosophy was to actually not acquire a pre-existing studio, but to build each location from ground up. So this way, the premise was to kind of instill the Rhythm&Hues culture in these facilities. And I think that's been a big part of our success. So we've been able to bring people and train them and teach them the way we work. And the other big thing that we do is these are not just facilities that we outsource to, they're sister facilities. We do everything at every facility, and we have all our facilities completely integrated, so we could share animators across different locations. They could then commit their work. We could have tech animation in another location that would then feed the data to lighting in yet another location. So we're completely integrated.
I'll point to what Gautham just said. That's the real core of our success, is that we didn't go in and buy another company that had a pre-existing culture with other types of software and had, what they thought their knowledge was of a way to do things, and then try, both Gautham and I have been through mergers before that were in this country, and we saw how difficult it was. So to try and merge two different cultures is really hard to do because people are stubborn. So what we did was we took a building and we trained people the way we train people in LA. That culture, that software, that way of doing things. So the resistance and the way to meld the two was much more simple, and I think that's the reason for the success.
From a resource standpoint, I believe the way stuff gets, we just look at the individuals as resources, and the work gets broken up amongst people. They don't really look at where people are. So what we find is, you'll have two animators in one location, another animator in yet another location. Sometimes they're working in the same scene, and because it's, at least from the production standpoint, I believe it's just a matter of trying to schedule the shows out and fit all of the work into the facility. So we've had to adapt that from the technology standpoint and make sure that our systems are smart enough to know who's working on what and how to intelligently distribute our assets in a manner that is, supportable and that is as frugal as possible with bandwidth. And I think another thing that's helped us is we've always had to be resourceful when it came to using resources, because we're a completely privately owned company, so not having the deep pockets, I guess, forced us to be creative.
We do try and break shows up by sequence when we can. We do multiple shows at once. And they're all in different stages of production. Some are pre-production, production. We're finishing up on shows. We do try and keep sequences together and have sequence teams together in the different facilities. It doesn't always work that way, as Gautham pointed out, but for the most part, this way people can, take it from A to Z as much as they can within one facility. Have a sense of completion, understand what they're doing for the show. What we're trying to do, I don't know what other people are trying to do. I see what some competitors are trying to do, what I believe they're trying to do. In order to maintain our, whatever profit margin there may be, or even if it's just covering overhead, we're expanding in basically a business that could be perceived as shrinking. Shrinking in terms of the amount of money that studios are able to spend on an individual show. So we're expanding, we're getting bigger to take more work at the lower rate. So if that can't continue indefinitely, obviously, and that model only works as long as you're able to continue to book work. You said faster, better, cheaper. They want all three. So that's what we're trying to provide. It doesn't always work that way, but that's what they're looking for. And that's what our competitors are trying to do also. Technology helps that, and also, spreading out. We're working 24 hours a day. The sun never sets on Rhythm&Hues. We're always at work.
I think what technology's done is it's allowed us to completely integrate all of these facilities. We're joined at the hip. So the challenges are now we have 4 data centers. We'll soon have a 5th in Vancouver. From my perspective, I always have a server that is down somewhere in the world. So we are on call 24/7. The biggest challenge is finding a window for downtime because you've got to do routine maintenance. Right now, the only window is Sunday morning because come Sunday afternoon, we've got facilities in India and Asia coming online, and then we typically work Saturdays. So I think from my perspective, just scheduling a downtime is my biggest problem. And then the other concerns that I have are, now that we've got 5 data centers, as the production methodologies change, if a production were to significantly change its resource requirements from, say, compute or disk, I have to worry about scaling 5 data centers. In Los Angeles, that's possible because we've got a fairly well-sized data center now. But in some of our other locations, we are limited by the cooling and the electrical capacities of those buildings. So to me, that's the biggest challenge. From a technology standpoint, computers are getting faster, bandwidth's getting cheaper, we're getting more RAM. The industry is consuming all of that at a voracious appetite. I mean, the last show we did, we had to increase the compute 8-fold to get it done. And we were able to do that. But I really don't know how we're going to keep this trend up without maybe rethinking some of our strategies as to how we set up our facilities. But we've been lucky because RhythmHues, we write all of our software. So we use very little third-party solutions. It's there, but they're kind of on the fringe. And having that consistency over the last decade has allowed us to completely integrate the software, the pipeline, and the infrastructure seamlessly.